So in this video I wanted to discuss the new lens that I got, which is the 12 to 32mm kit lens. And it's the lens that I'm recording this video on right now, so just get into it. Oh, I keep getting insects on me. So in this video I'm going to cover why I got this lens, reasons you should maybe get this lens and why this is a good lens, and things I just don't like about this lens. So the reason I got this lens is because I needed a wider angle lens. About a month ago I decided to buy the Panasonic G80-5 or G80 for 4K video making. The camera I got didn't come with any lens, it was just the body only. So I had a choice of lenses I could have gone with. So I didn't want to spend more than £100 on this lens. So after buying the camera I decided to go with a very popular 25mm 1.7 Panasonic lens, which is a very good lens, very good low light performance, good colours. It's a good lens for the price. So I spent about £100 on that lens. The only problem is it's not a very versatile lens. So it's very good at getting narrow cinematic shots. It wasn't doing everything that I wanted it to do, so I needed to look for another lens. The lens I wanted was a more versatile lens that had kind of a wider focal length. The first one was the 14 to 42mm kit lens that usually comes with this camera. You can pick them up for about £60–65 on eBay used, and they, from what I've heard, is a very good basic versatile kit lens, but it was missing something. For me personally, I didn't think that 14mm was wide enough, especially with the micro four thirds where there's a 2x crop factor. So I was essentially going to buy a 28mm full frame lens, and I didn't think this was wide enough. The next step you could have got was a 12mm. Initially I thought that there wasn't too big a difference between 14mm and 12mm, but you got to remember that there's a 2x crop factor, so you're actually comparing a 28mm to a 24mm, and there's a good extra, like there's a difference. So I'm just going to show some video comparing the two, just so you can see there is actually a slight difference. So there is a significant difference between 12mm here and 14mm here. 12mm, 14mm. Wanting a 12mm lens kind of meant that I couldn't go with the kit lens. So the next thing I thought of was the 12 to 60mm, which is the slightly more expensive kit lens that comes with some Panasonic cameras. They're quite a lot more expensive, they're at £200. So I kind of thought about it, and I only really wanted it for the sort of wide focal lengths. And then I stumbled across the 12 to 32mm lens, which is what I'm using right now, and this comes as a kit lens for some of the smaller Panasonic cameras, and it is a very small lens, as you can see. You turn the camera off, you can compact it so it's like very flat pancake lens, and when you want to use it you have to twist it a little bit and the lens pops out, and then you can use it. The one I found was silver, it doesn't really fit my black camera. So I paid about £90 for this lens used on eBay. You could probably find it for a little bit cheaper if you looked around. I'd say probably maybe £75 used. So I'm able to set the camera up quite close to me and still have a lot of room around my kind of face. So it's quite good. Yeah, 12mm is good. I maybe would have liked like a 10mm, but I'll be paying £300–400 for that. The aperture's 3.5, so there's enough to have a little bit of a blur in the background. You can vlog with it. It's good enough to vlog with. I'd probably be about this far away if I was vlogging. OIS, Optical image stabilization, plus the IBIS in-body stabilization. So you've got like dual stabilization. So I've noticed it's a lot smoother when you kind of film handheld, which is pretty good. And for photo taking, it's also fairly sharp. Like I've not noticed, like 4K, it just looks fine. So I'm going to move on to some things I don't actually like that much about this lens. The first one being the focus. So it's got autofocus, which is good. I mean, all right. So recording at 4K paired with the G80, the autofocus is not very good at 4K, especially while you're recording. I just quite like being able to use manual focus because it's quite fun. When it's on a tripod, it's all right because you can focus on the app. So I use the Panasonic app to just make sure I'm in focus before I start the video. So it's not the biggest problem. The main problem is if I was using it handheld shooting a subject. The other thing that I'm not the biggest fan of, but it's not that big a deal, is the aperture gets quite narrow when it's fully zoomed in. So at 32mm, the aperture is 5.6, which is I'm trying to think of anything else that's really an issue with this lens, to be honest. It's wide enough for what I was looking for. It's 12mm. It's not hugely expensive in terms of lenses. It's got good stabilisation, the autofocus is fine. Apart from just not having a manual focus ring, I can't really fault this lens. So another final thing that I thought of that might be a bit of an issue, so I'm just squinting because there's a lot of like sunlight in my eyes right now, is that the standard lens hood doesn't really work with this camera. It doesn't come with a lens hood. I had a look at the lens and there is actually kind of a thread, so you could put a lens hood on, but you'd have to find one separately. So I'm just going to finish off by testing this lens for vlogging, because that's something you can actually do with it, because it's kind of wide enough. So this is just testing the lens for vlogging. I've come a bit into the shade, but yeah. So as you can see, it's at arm's length, it seems pretty wide. I know a 14mm would be a little bit more cropped in, so this is 14mm, this is 12mm, 14, 12. So there is a noticeable difference, especially when holding it in your hand. So a bit of a channel update. I actually finished my summer break tomorrow, and then I have to drive up to university. So I'm going to have to set up my room, and I'm going to try and have a part of my room dedicated to making videos where I've got like a tripod and stuff, backdrop set up, and I'll do a room tour video. So if you enjoyed this video, be sure to like, subscribe, and I'll see everyone in my next video.